And my wife again said, okay, if you want to do keto, you do keto. You just cut out the carbs and you eat everything else. So it was, much more doable without her having to change the way she cooked and the way she prepared her meals. And then at some point, she again did her research, said, okay, you know what, maybe, eating so many carbs is not a good thing. We want to be in ketosis. We want to, do the fasting and all of that. So we roped that in, and that was then an important change at a time when our son was born prematurely, and when we kind of started to doubt, all the advice we've gotten from, his medical team in terms of, diet, his pediatrician and all, what he needs to grow, because he was relatively small for his age in the womb already, as well as then, when he was born. And they're like, oh, just feed him, sweet potatoes with brown sugar and stuff. And I'm like, we're not going to do this, he doesn't need any of that. He needs nutrients, and it's not coming from brown sugar or, the baby formula filled with seed oils. I mean, that's a whole nother issue because it's, at the time we had to supplement, or at least we were told we had to supplement the breastfeeding with extra formula to give him even more nutrients. And if, the best type of formula money can buy is just a piece of junk food, with artificial sweeteners and seed oils and all of that stuff that, I wish we would have never given to him. But we didn't know any better at the time. So it was, a little bit of a rough transition, and it took a while for both of us to really come to get on the same page and say, okay, this is where we are right now food-wise. This is where we want to be, and how do we get there without creating any major friction points, without making your life as, our primary cook, if you want to say, because my wife's a stay-at-home mom, so she takes care of most of the things at home. How can we make this work so it works for everybody? And then of course, also with the kids. And that's, that was fortunately never an issue. We were always on the same page as far as the kids are concerned. But of course, with everyone around us, who realized how we are feeding our kids, and why are your kids on keto, or why, and they were actually most of the time in ketosis, but not because they didn't get any carbs at all, but because they burned carbs so quickly, at that age, that they were, they were always depleted their glycogen stores overnight. In the morning, they were in ketosis, regardless of what they ate during the day. And so we kind of encouraged that, high fat, high protein type of diet. And that turned out fairly well for our kids. But of course, it was always an uphill battle with, the healthcare professionals who, took care of the kids, pediatricians, friends and family, and everyone around who was not used to, kids not eating mac and cheese and all of the stuff that, most American kids, eat.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to ask you if you experienced any pushback with people that learned, by their understanding, they might think that keto is a fad or something. They saw it on a magazine at the grocery store, and so this is the next new diet, which is absolutely preposterous. It's totally ridiculous. It's the oldest diet that we have. I wondered if you were getting pushback from people around you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, pretty much everyone, especially, at some point, especially with the youngest one, with Lucas, who was, as I mentioned, born prematurely, he was seeing a nutritionist, and I had fierce exchanges with her in terms of what he should and should not be eating. And we stuck to our beliefs, fortunately, and fed him what we thought was right, and it turned out, I mean, based on how he is right now, I think it was the right choice. Always high fat, high protein, very animal based. And whatever didn't sit well in his stomach, we just cut out. And he was on a very restrictive, quote unquote, restrictive diet that mimicked how we were eating, but he was doing well, and he has been doing well. And so,
yeah, that's amazing. I wonder if the same people that would push back on you would also look at their lunch boxes, and probably they would just see a bunch of healthy food. Like there's something, terribly restrictive looking when you're following some of these diets, especially if you're doing it the right way. You're eating meat and probably some dairy and probably some fruits. There's not a lot of unhealthy foods there.
Right. I mean, I think the major misconception that a lot of people have is that you need carbs. Carbs are essential. And most people understand is that there are only two essential macros, and that's fat and protein. Those are the ones that the body cannot make. You need to get them from food. Glucose, on the other hand, you don't need carbs to get glucose. Body can make it from non-carbohydrate sources. Now, is it ideal to always do that in every situation, every stage of your age? I don't know. But your body can make it. If you need glucose, gluconeogenesis takes care of you.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, one misconception that many have. But I also think, just ignoring the nutritional aspect, I think what weirded out a lot of people is the social aspect of what do you do if if everyone else eats their or drinks their juice box and has crackers and whatnot, and your kid doesn't. Poor your kid, who feels socially awkward and who gets then bullied and what have you. And that is a real issue. If you go to a birthday party, and what do we serve at American birthday parties, kids' birthday parties? It's pizza and it's cake, right? The cake typically probably from Publix or some other grocery store filled with sugar and seed oils probably, and then the pizza is not going to be the original pizza from your high-end kind of pizzeria that uses only ingredients flown in from Italy. No, it's your Papa John's or Pizza Hut or what have you, again made with seed oils and with the crappiest ingredients you can think of. And so we said, our kids are not going to have that. We brought their own. My wife would bake a paleo muffin or what have you. Not that it's great food based on the diet that we have now, but at least it's significantly better and made with better ingredients than that cake. And instead of the pizza, well, they didn't have that. They just said, no thank you, we're not going to have pizza. And it was very awkward at times. I cared less about it. My wife was a little bit more felt a little bit more awkward because I just don't give a damn about what other people think. And we talk to the kids and say, look, those, if you look around and look at how those kids look, not that we want to put them into certain categories, but just a reflection of their diet, you can see based on how many of those kids look, that's something we're trying to avoid. We want to live healthier, and they probably don't know that, and so they eat what they eat, and we just do it differently. And in the beginning, they didn't really understand, but now they do. And they're perfectly fine with that. And it was a process, but I think it was totally worthwhile sticking that out. And because now that they eat healthy 99% of the time, if they go to a party and say, you know what, can I pick between a slice of pizza or a slice of the cake? I say, yes, you can, because every other meal you have, is fine. And you're not going to a birthday party every week. It's once every couple of months. And when you do that, you can make the choice to eat something that's not good for you, much like we make the choice at times as well. And we still feel great because we are robust and we are metabolically healthy, but getting there was certainly a bit of a journey.
But like you said, your kids understand. You have explained this to them. They choose foods, which I think is super important. I've heard you talk about this on another show, which I thought was wonderful, but it's not, you're not forcing this on them. It's something that they're choosing. They understand. They can tie the correlation between the things they're eating and the ways they're feeling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially with the younger one, with the one who was born prematurely, he has always had gut issues, soft stools and whatnot for the better part of his, the first couple of years. And so we told him, look, you have, issues in your gut because of something that you eat is not sitting well with you. So let's try the following. Let's remove everything but meat, only eat meat for a while. And then you add one thing in and another thing in and another thing in, and you see at what point you're having those gut issues again. And for him, that clicked because suddenly he ate something, I think it was nuts really for him. I think it was almonds or stuff that, once every so often, maybe for Christmas or whatever, my wife bakes maybe, cookies using nut flour instead of regular flour. And if he has them, he has gut issues, and he connected and he's like, I can't eat this anymore. I don't want to eat this anymore because otherwise I'm going to have gut issues and I don't want that. And that connection was very important for him to really figure out the connection between what he eats and how he feels. And now he is making those choices and we don't even have to tell him anything. And like, you pick what you think is best for you. And 9 out of 10 times he makes the right choice,
That's amazing. No, I think most parents, I understand it's really difficult out there. I understand that sugar is addictive and it's everywhere. And so I think most parents I don't know, maybe they just don't do enough or don't give their kids enough credit that they'll be able to learn this stuff and make those associations. Just because everybody else isn't doing it doesn't mean your kids can't do it. And yeah,
Right.
it might be a little awkward in the beginning and there might be a transition period, but you're going to get past that. And what a joy for these kids. How was their behavior change when they started eating all of these whole foods?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I never had with the exception of maybe our youngest one in the first 2.5 years or so. And well, and her diet wasn't terrible either, because at that point, obviously, he was too young to eat really junk food, but it was, maybe chewing on a bread or eating some Rice Krispies or stuff that, we don't eat now anymore. But beyond that, they always had a relatively solid diet made with whole foods. Maybe some of the whole foods were detrimental to their gut, and some other areas, but it wasn't like that they never had a candy. I think it took Isabella 8 years for the first time to try a candy. And
wow.
And she's like, this is way too sweet, like,
That's amazing.
And that was, such a joyful moment for us, because I'm like, okay, because she always seen other kids and like, can I try just one? I'm like, yeah, you try it out and tell me what you think, Know that it's not good for you, but you're not gonna die just because you have, that one, I don't know what it was. And she said, I don't like it. And now even for her, for certain celebrations, like, what, I don't want to have cake. It's way too sweet. Even the one that we make at home, sweetened with our own honey, for her, it's too sweet, because she's not used to eating a lot of sweet stuff. And so, I think every kid can do that. You just need to give the opportunity to feed them real stuff and avoid some of the junk foods, to kind of, reset their gut and reset the bacteria in the gut, because ultimately all those cravings we have, or many of those, come from, the type of bacteria that they have in your gut. If they thrive on junk food and you don't give it to them, you're going to have cravings. But once that bad bacteria, quote unquote, has died off, and you have a better composition of bacteria in your gut that thrive on fats and protein and those kind of things, then you're not going to have those issues anymore. It's not a battle for the rest of your life, is what I'm trying to say. It just takes a little bit of a transition period, and after that, you can let your kids, take the lead. They know what they need and what their body needs for the most part. And it's not an ongoing battle. But one of the things that, and I've said this, I think in one of my blog posts or in the YouTube video as well, one of the major things that we've done is remove everything from our pantry that we don't want our kids to have. So in other words, if they say, oh, can I get a snack? I'm like, yeah, go to the pantry, whatever you find, you can eat. You're not going to find any Snickers and any, those kind of things. You might find sweet plantain chips. You might find cheese crackers, with Parmesan cheese. Those are kind of the worst things that we have in the pantry, quote unquote. If you want to have one of those, have at it, but beyond that, there is nothing in our pantry that they cannot have. And so that just removes the argument from the entire, situation. Because you don't know, it's there, but you can't have it. Well, why is that? Who is it there for? For you, why are you eating it if I can't? And
yeah.
it's, you don't want to have the discussion.
That's great advice. My parents used to keep all the sweet stuff up at the very top of the pantry, and so you just learn how to like climb up.
Yeah,
exactly. You go to get the good stuff. It's so interesting. I love that you made that point. I think that's a wonderful point. Is just start by don't bring it in the house. I mean, I don't know, she's 87. I want to say my grandma at 87 years old decided to finally like stop buying candy and bringing it in the house. At that age, she lost like 50, 60 pounds. This just last year. And she did that one thing that you just said, don't bring it in the house. And it worked amazingly well, even at that age. There's another thing that you talked about that we mentioned briefly. Why is it so important to give your kids a choice?
Because I think we all want to feel empowered to be able to make choices, and for kids, as they grow and explore their environment and explore, how much power they have or not have. I mean, if you think about it, most of the things that our kids do, we decide for them. Okay, this is what you put, what clothes you wear. This is where we're gonna go. This is your, everything is decided for them. And it can be, I imagine, incredibly frustrating if you cannot make your own choices. And especially, with foods that you might like or not like, having to eat something that you absolutely don't like, is horrible. I mean, I've gone through this, and when I was a kid, my mom said, this is what we're gonna have, and I'm like, I don't want it. We're like, why don't you sit on the table until it's gone, or you're not gonna get anything else. But by giving them choices, even if it's between meatballs that has liver mixed in and ribeye, if they pick the ribeye, okay, great, it's not a bad choice. I would have rather them pick the meatballs with the liver. But still they pick the ribeye, but I'm not, if they don't have a choice, you have an argument. And and the funny thing is with kids, even if you offer them choices, where if you would offer only that one thing and they would say, no, I don't like this, but if they have two options that they don't really like, but they can make a choice between those two, chances are they're going to stick with that choice, and they're going to eat it anyway. It was their choice, that they made that choice themselves, so they're going to eat that. But if you would have only offered this one thing as a, hey, here are the meatballs with liver, like, I don't want this. But if it's meatballs with liver and something else, even if the something else is not their absolute favorite, they choose the lesser evil, so to say. It was their choice. And it's much more, you reduce friction at the end of the day, and you make the kid happier, and you empower your kids to make decisions and stick with them, and deal with the consequences, whatever they might be.
Empowering, right? That's the perfect word. It's empowering. It's giving your kids autonomy. Same with partnerships. You should always give your partner autonomy to make the choices that they want to make, and just provide a safe environment to do that. So I absolutely love that approach. I do have to clarify though, when you mention ribeye and consuming ribeye, you are referring to the steak and not referring to your dog named Ribeye. Is that correct? Not the dog. Right. Okay.
Yeah, the dog is intentionally spelled with rib space I, so it's not to be confused with the ribeye.
Nice. Okay. Just want to make sure you guys were getting your dog over there. I love the name, by the way. I think that's awesome.